Continuing our conversation now here on News Talk with Politico CEO Jim VandeHei and Politico Chief White House Correspondent Mike Allen. Guys, what was it about former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's performance on stage in Las Vegas the other night that had the political community, and I'll just do a flat-out rave here, Mike. I wake up to Playbook every day, and I know the people who watch this show are interested in politics and everything.
Part of a good breakfast?
and the big mystery, of course, in Washington is when does Mike Allen sleep, because he's awake all day, and apparently he's awake all night putting together Playbook.
He don't work much, so he sleeps during the day.
I was struck. I mean, I watched the debate. I thought there were good moments for several of the candidates. Can't say all. I can't imagine Lincoln Chafee and Jim Webb are even involved next time, but who knows? What was it about Hillary Clinton's performance that had the political world so abuzz?
Yeah, somebody was joking that they shouldn't tell Lincoln Chafee where the next debate is. Politico popped up a headline right away during the debate that said Clinton crushes it.
Right.
And that right away became the narrative. That was the first thing that she was told after she watched off the stage in the win in Las Vegas. And what we saw there is that Hillary Clinton could take incoming. Anderson Cooper brought hardball. He was much tougher than I think most people expected him to, and she not only survived but looked comfortable, used a little humor. She didn't do her awkward laugh as much as she usually does, and put herself in a very strong position going into now a week from today that testimony before the House Benghazi Committee.
But let's put it in a little bit of perspective. She was on stage with one gentleman who did no preparation whatsoever for the debate, and three people who have as good a chance of being the next president as I do. And so she's been debating since she was in the womb. So she should have had an awesome performance. She had a very good performance. I think the fact that Senator Sanders didn't put more prep work into it showed, and I think especially for people who might have been persuaded to take a chance on somebody who has politics that are probably on the far left of the Democratic Party, I think that he didn't do anything to reassure those people.
So the Benghazi thing still looms large, but not the Benghazi thing. Her testimony next week before that House Select Committee still looms large. If this question is naive, I'll plead guilty. Is there a risk of overconfidence, given what you just say, putting the whole thing in perspective in terms of what the moment required? There's no chance that the Clinton team will, start doing the 3-martini lunch thing and take their eye off the target.
Well, remember what the coverage of the Clinton campaign has been until 12 hours ago. It's been, I think, brutally harsh on her and her operation. So I don't think that they're going to get overconfident. There's still the possible threat that Joe Biden would jump into the race. I've never thought he would. Mike has always believed he will jump into the race. And so they have to be worried about that. I don't think the Clintons, I don't think anyone around them takes seriously the threat of anybody else on that stage. They think that Sanders is having his moment, that he'd do very well in Iowa and New Hampshire, but that he's basically a fringe candidate who's not a long-term threat to their viability. What's a threat to their viability would be the Benghazi investigation, the emails, something else out there that continues to lead to a sort of a degradation in the numbers of people who think that she's trustworthy and someone who should be presidential. That's the number one threat to her, is that so many people in swing states don't believe a word she says, and that is problematic.
We may be seeing, Mike, the Biden strategy playing out as intended by the man by the quarterback of the team. Stay in the conversation, be talked about as much as possible, but at the end of the day conclude, perhaps reluctantly, that 2016 is not a year that'll see him on the playing field.
Yeah, I think that's right, Bruce. And his friends have been saying for weeks, months, that they hope that the vice president will take this period as a recovery from his terrible family tragedy, the loss of his son, Beau, and he would take all that coverage that he's getting, all the affirmation that he's getting from his friends, and let that be what this period is for. Whereas if he were to jump in, there's no way that has a happy ending. You know, for almost every candidate, they say your best days are the day you announce. That would almost certainly be true for Vice President Biden. The Clintons play tough. I don't think they wanted to take him down, but I think they were ready to.
A corollary of that applies to Paul Ryan. His best day would be the day he decided to go for and presumably get Speaker, although Jim, I've been struck by the vitriol coming at him from the right. Is this having an impact?
There's no doubt it's going to have an impact, because if you're Paul Ryan, you're sitting there and you're weighing these discussions you're having with people. Can you actually trust conservatives not to try to stage a coup to force you to be able to do what they want you to do? And I think we've talked a lot of sort of the negative implications of what's happening in the House of Representatives. One of the conversations that I think is potentially very healthy is that if you look at what these rank and file members are saying, they said, let's weaken the speakership and return to empowering committee chairmen. And I don't know if that would work or not work, but I know that the status quo doesn't work at all. Doesn't work in the modern Congress, not with the two sides so polarized. So maybe if you do throw it back to regular order and you throw it into the committee chairman, maybe they are onto something. And under that scenario, why wouldn't you just be chairman of the most powerful committee in Congress, which is Ways and Means, where you're Paul Ryan who runs that, and the issues that you care about that you want to be definitional for you as you run for president one day, that would seem like a better place to be.
But I love your thing about the right-wing media in the last couple of days, that Paul Ryan is a squish. Like, that's where we're at.
It's amazing. You've been spending a lot of time on planes. Jim, talk briefly, if you would, and I'm afraid I hate it that we're up against the clock a little bit, but talk about Politico's expansion into Europe, because it's a fascinating time on the continent. And you all are in the process of revolutionizing the coverage of politics in Europe as you have here in the U.S.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time just covering politics and policy. It worked very well here, and I think we've got a very reliable and large group of people who read Politico, particularly among insiders, and we're trying the exact same model in Europe. We're trying it in New York, in Florida, eventually in most, if not every single state, and every country of consequence. And so Europe has been a big test for us the last 6 months, and it's been really cool to watch, to see that the political community in Europe, while radically different in terms of the issues that they're interested in and the institutions that they're governing, they're responding the same way to the type of journalism. Like, really smart people need really smart journalism, and that's, as a journalist, that's gratifying.
And I would tip my hat to you guys in terms of what you might say is, might describe as Politico 2.0 for the American audience. The more long-form content, that has been awesome to read, and part of the evolution, I guess, of the original product here.
Yeah, there's been, I think that one of the downsides of modern journalism, there's a lot of garbage out there, and we just don't want to participate in that. We want to figure out ways to maintain and grow really awesome, high-end, deeply reported, nonpartisan journalism, and we're having some success, and hopefully, God willing, we'll keep having it.
Really awesome to have both of you here. CEO Jim Vandehei, Chief White House Correspondent Mike Allen. Appreciate your time.
Thanks
very
much
much.
for the show.
Good to see you as always. We'll take a break here, come back with much, much more News Talk right after this.